Good morning. This is Thursday morning, our last devotion for this week, August 12th. Welcome everyone this morning. And not only is our last devotion for the week, it is our last phrase in Psalm 23. Jan Akins, I see you. Good morning to you. Jim and Kathy Fuente, good morning. Hope everybody's morning is beginning well and that you've had a good week this week. Jeremy and Wendy, good morning. Let's see, Steve and Andrea, welcome to you. Steve, thank you for being a good neighbor to my mom last night. I wasn't home to investigate a sound in the backyard. I'm glad everything turned out well. Mike and Joe Stromberg, Deanne Fine, good morning. Janisa, Debbie Jackson, welcome. Marcy Walters, good morning to you, as well as Tim. If you're listening, Tim, happy birthday. I see that today's your birthday. And Daryl and Suzanne Limbo, if you are watching today at some point. Daryl, I understand it was your birthday this week, maybe a couple days ago. Happy birthday to you. There's my mom, good morning to you. Letitia Sexton, good morning. Debbie King, good morning. So we are finishing up Psalm 23 this morning, and just as the psalm began with this glorious statement, the Lord is my shepherd, it ends with a glorious statement. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And what a great statement. So what is the psalmist meaning? What is the house of the Lord? I mean, sometimes we think in our own nomenclature that the house of the Lord refers to the temple in Jerusalem or to the church, here locally. And certainly it is good to go and come into the presence of God and worship Him and learn from His Word and hear the Holy Scriptures being read and lifting up our voices in worship and so on. And even Jesus uses this kind of language. Remember when he was a boy and he got separated from his parents, there was a Passover and parents are all heading back home. They figure out Jesus isn't here with us, so they go all the way back to Jerusalem and they're searching for him. They finally found him, and lo and behold, he was in the temple. And Jesus says, didn't you know I needed to be in my Father's house, right? So there is this sense in which the house of the Lord is the temple and the presence of God, and our worship experiences. That's great. I don't think that's what David is intending here. I really think that the other very common way the word house is used in the Bible refers to the family or the household, and the scriptures talk about Moses being faithful in all God's house. That'd be an example of referring to God's family, being a part of God's family. And I think this is probably, while referring to the temple may, not specifically the temple, because the temple wasn't built when David wrote this psalm, but the presence of God and the worship of the Lord, that could be there. So I'm not going to erase it from it, but certainly I think the biggest thing is, in the context of Psalm 23, the Lord being our shepherd, and I'm a part of His flock. I'm a part of His house. I'm experiencing all the things describing as a part of God's household, all the things that Psalm 23 describes is my experience, and that experience is going to go on forever. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This will always be my experience. And so a couple of words come to mind when I think about this as I journaled this morning, and that was security, and secondly, contentment. I will dwell in the house of the Lord. I'll be a part of God's family. I will be a sheep in His flock forever. So the first word, security. This speaks, in my mind, as I was journaling, of God's permanent disposition toward us. A promise he made to Israel when they were going into the promised land. He said, I will be with you. I will neither leave you nor forsake you. So you shouldn't fear. And I love this imagery because I feel like that's what God as a shepherd is to us. You know, even when we're in the dark valleys, even when there are enemies encamped against us, we would not fear because God is with us. God, who is our caregiver in every way. He leads us beside quiet waters. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He's setting a table before me. And I think about this big picture, and the psalmist, you know, David talks about the cup, you know, meaning his lot in life. As it describes all of these things, you know, it overflows. You anoint my head with oil, and no matter where I go, your goodness and mercy is going to follow me where all the days of my life, right? And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So it speaks of security, permanence. God's disposition toward us is that he will never leave us, never forsake us. Once we are in God's flock, we will always have him as our shepherd. He'll never abandon us, reject us. We can always turn to him. He is always near. He is always present. Even if we wander off, he, being the good shepherd, is going to chase us down. His desire is to bring us back into the safety of the fold. You know, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, I am the gate. So he brings us into the pen at night, and he himself sleeps in the entrance to that, so that you know, we stay and are protected. And this is our eternal state. Once we place our faith in Jesus, God will never forsake us. The New Testament tells us that we have received the Holy Spirit, God's very presence in us, as a deposit, guaranteeing that all the rest of the promises of God will be met, that we will, after death, see him face to face, that we will, our life will be ultimately redeemed, that we don't have to fear death, that God is going to be with us every step of the way, that he will reward us for faithfulness. You know, we won't live for him all of our life, and then after death, he'll reject us. No, God's saying, I'm giving you my Holy Spirit to live this life as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come, all the promises, the glorification, our being resurrected on the final day, our receiving our eternal bodies, to live in the new heaven and new earth in the presence of God with one another for all of eternity. All of that is guaranteed, you know, to us by God, who will never leave us or forsake us. I love that language. I mean, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I mean, everything that we've talked about in Psalm 23, that's a permanent condition, you know, from God to us. The second word is the word that comes to mind is the word contentment. Because that's true, I feel a really deep, profound sense of contentment. Why would I leave? I'm not going to go seek some other shepherd or to be a part of some other flock, because it's just so good to have the Lord as my shepherd. Even in the dark times, even in the valley of the shadow of death and the enemies that are encamped against us, the shepherd's there. Why would I entrust my life to any other shepherd? So I have this deep sense of contentment. And in light of that, I just want to, point out that, we as sheep are prone to wander. This is a strange phenomenon about sheep. You can have a really, really good shepherd, and literal sheep, they still wander, right? That's a metaphor that's used more than once, many times in the Bible. And it's a metaphor that we can relate to. I hate this reality that as I dwell and meditate on all the goodness of God, and even in the dark times, God's presence there, it evokes a sense of contentment. But how often is the enemy, Satan himself, wanting to creep into the sheepfold. And Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd, but the thief, Satan, the thief, wants to break in and kill and steal and destroy. So Satan's going to try to cleverly entice us to think that somehow there are greener pastures under some other shepherd's care. And every time we have fallen for this temptation to kind of wander away from the flock of God, seeking out some enticement of this life, without fail, at least my experience, without fail, that always ends in disappointment. It ends in guilt, shame. It didn't really pan out the way I hoped to, or what was promised to me. And like, man, why am I here again? I need to go back to God's house, God's sheepfold. That's where true contentment lies. Why am I even tempted to wander away? But I don't know. It's just the reality of our human fallen nature. But when we really meditate on all these things that we've been studying in Psalm 23, there is a deep, profound sense of contentment. We really do truly find contentment. Why would we want to go anywhere else? Only when our eyes get off of all the things we're experiencing in Psalm 23, as God being our good shepherd, would we be tempted to wander. And so all the more reason for us to seek to keep our eyes fixed on and meditate on the goodness of and the mercy of God, which follows us all of our days, and to find that contentment that we are promised this dwelling place, this being a part of God's flock, being a part of God's family forever. What good things. And one last thought before we go is that I really feel like this is a very rich source of how other people find God. Other sheep find the good shepherd. It's really this life. If we are living the life of Psalm 23, our lives become a platform of the good news, of evangelism. People see our life, our highs and our lows, good and bad, hilltops and valleys, and the experience we have with our good shepherd, the contentment we can find, the protection, the comfort in dark times, and the richness of the places that God leads us, the quiet waters and the green pastures, the table he sets before us, the oil he puts on our head, our cup overflowing. That sensation, that contentment, that life, other people see. It doesn't mean that we have all good life, right? Because there's the valley, there's the enemy that is encamped against us. Those things we do tend to wander, and God takes us and brings us back to the flock. All of those, everything, all of those experiences, people see and they say, wow, you do have a good shepherd. The fact that we can brag on God as our shepherd in all of our life experiences, and repeat the realities of Psalm 23 in our everyday life. People say, I want a shepherd like your shepherd. I want God as my shepherd. And so we think of evangelism as crusades and going door to door and standing on a street corner with a sandwich board or something. Yes, those are all aspects of evangelism, but we can't fail to recognize that our very life, just living out the day-to-day highs and lows and mundanes of life with God as our shepherd, is light in a dark place. Our bragging on God as our shepherd in the highs and lows. People are attracted to light, and they see this wonderful shepherd, and our life just displays that, can display that, if we're living the Psalm 23 life. We're trusting in God as our good shepherd. We're bragging on God as our good shepherd. People are going to be drawn to it. And that's hope for us introverts even, right? Who don't want to go door to door. We just live our life in the goodness of God, and that life speaks the gospel. Our words and our life experience for the people that we know well, our neighbors, our coworkers, our family members who don't haven't placed their faith in Jesus see our life and they say, wow, you have a good shepherd. And we say, yeah, we do. Join the family. He's welcome. He's open. He wants you to be a part of his flock too. So this is great. Love Psalm 23. And so that's our conclusion for this week and this last few weeks of study. And I have an idea where I want to head next. Remember, next week, I'm not doing the morning live stream. We'll pick it up in 2 weeks, on the 23rd of August. So we'll see you in that period of time. Until then, Lord bless you. Allow the shepherd to guide your every step. God bless.